My name is Ed Cardinal, and welcome to my Thursday evening Facebook Live. My topic tonight is about dealing with trauma. And this topic came up because I had to deal with a disturbing event last week that brought up some emotions that in the way that I dealt with it, I think was helpful for me. But the things that came up, it just felt like it was a great topic because I know that everyone who is listening and watching this video have dealt with some sort of trauma at one time or another in your life. That could be a sudden illness of a family member, a loved one, death, act of war, an accident, some sort of abuse, sexual or physical abuse. And even certain professions are dealing with trauma, almost every day, as in medical professions, emergency room doctors and nurses and first responders, police officers, firemen and women. So very common, unfortunately, and the way that men deal with trauma is different than it is for women. And my focus is going to be men, not that the coping strategies I'm going to discuss are good for anyone. So last week, my wife Jude and I went down to Charleston, South Carolina, which is about 4 hours from Asheville, to see a concert. We saw Carlos Santana last Tuesday night. Great show. Enjoyed ourselves. Spent the night, and then while driving home, we got about an hour from Asheville, and we were just in the northern part of South Carolina on the highway, and Jude had a experience of medical emergency, and very frightening for me. I mean, when I'm getting better at discussing it. In the beginning, I got quite choked up because it was fearful for me to see a loved one struggling in that way. I pulled over and went to her side of the vehicle, and I was trying to use the emergency button on my phone, and it wasn't working. And so then I began to frantically wave people over, and sure enough, wouldn't you know it, a nurse, emergency room nurse, pulled over. You can always count on nurses. I've worked with a lot of them, and they're amazing people, not afraid to jump in when the time calls. And it was a good thing because she knew the area. She just got off work. She knew where on the highway we were. She knew what mile marker she went. The mile marker was right there. She went to look at it, so she could tell the ambulance where to come. And while we waited, she was keeping an eye on Jude. We put the seat back and put the air on, and ambulance comes and off Jude goes, and I'm following. And the emotion I had was fear that was she going to be okay? Not being able to be in that ambulance, my thoughts started racing towards the worst case scenario, and I always tried to bring myself back to not going there. So we spent the afternoon in the hospital, and things checked out for the most part normal. So we were able to then go home, and when you get in a crisis situation, that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, that fight or flight, and I was in that fight mode, and I've been there before in other situations in my life. What I find is that maybe a day or two later, after the crisis is over, then the emotions, then the feelings start to come up, the fear, and for me that happened. Let me talk a little bit about how men are different in dealing with trauma, and it doesn't surprise me because I believe it has a lot to do with the way men are socialized. Number one, men get more angry quickly after after a traumatic event, immediately or even down the road. I believe it's because anger is more acceptable for men than vulnerability or dealing with your emotions, um, than not wanting to be afraid, not wanting to deal with the feelings associated with the trauma, or not wanting to deal with the intensity of the memory of it. Also, men are most likely to isolate and not seek treatment. Again, I believe this is how we were socialized. And men often avoid dealing with stress by shutting down when they're feeling overwhelmed. Some may turn to substance abuse or other destructive behavior. I can tell you for me, number one, the anger piece did come up for me after the sort of the fear was the next emotion was anger. And from what I understand, dealing with the traumatic event, it's almost like dealing with the stages of death. There's the shock, there's the denial, there's the anger, and the final stage being the acceptance. So I did deal with some of that anger, and my wife can attest to this. Real quick with my anger. For me, what was coming up is I was angry at her for putting me through it. Not that she did it on purpose. And I know it's not rational, but I'm just being honest. That's what came up with me, because it was not a pleasant situation for me or for her. But as she said, sometimes things like this are more difficult for the person who is the loved one, as opposed to the person going through it themselves. So that's some of the emotions that came up. As I talk more about it, it gets easier. So here's some coping mechanisms for people dealing with trauma. And number one, I already talked about, is you're talking about it. Reach out to a trusted friend or a trained professional. The more you talk about it, it sort of lessens the intensity of it. And that's something I did. I reached out to my brother. I reached out to my good friend Ron, who's a clinical social worker. I reached out to my mom. And so every time I started relaying the story, it got easier and easier to tell, and the emotions were not as intense. The other thing that I believe is really important is focusing on breathing. I'm a big proponent of breath work. I practice it in my life daily. When the emotions come up, and I would replay the memory of the event. It started to come into my mind. And when it did, then my body would go into that stress response again. So when that happened, and it's less now, but I would focus on my breathing. You want to breathe in and out through your nose, slow, deep breaths. Count in for a count of 4 and out slowly to the count of 6 to 8. And what that does is that actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of the nervous system. It calms the nervous system. Something else I learned is think positively for 12 seconds. When those emotions come up, those memories flood in, think about a fond memory of your past, or it could be a person, place, or thing, something that is a sunset or being on the beach, something that brings your mind away from that traumatic event. And this is where the breath comes in too, focusing on the breathing while doing so, and also being in touch with your whole body. And if you're experiencing any tension, use the breath to relax the body. So research shows that thinking positively for 12 seconds actually creates new neural pathways. And lastly, the one that I used also was exercise. For me, it's always been a mainstay for me, psychotherapy. The exercise helps release the energy of that trauma from the nervous system. So for me, my trail running and working out has also been very helpful. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please like or comment below, and look forward to seeing you next Thursday night for my 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Facebook Live, and also look for my daily reels, my quotes, real quotes for the day, and also my health tips. Have a great evening and looking forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.